Hi there, I'm Luke, welcome back to Photo Buy, and today we're checking out the Canon EOS R. Let's get into it. So Canon gave us the Canon EOS R to have a play with, and we went out, we did some testing, we're checking out how it performed. We're very thankful they gave us the 50mm f1.2, and we'll get into that a bit later. Inside you're looking at a 30.3 megapixel full frame CMOS sensor, which is pretty much the same as the 5D4. You also got dual pixel autofocus with 5,655 autofocus points, and yes, that isn't a typo, that is the exact number that they put in here. When it comes to the ISO range, you can go from 100 to 40,000, or you can expand that to 50 to 102,400. When it comes to frames per second, you can go 800 frames per second continuous, or you can go with 5 frames a second with the servo autofocus on. And when it comes to video, we do have our friend Josh who will take you through that, so we won't go heavily into it, but one of the main factors that will probably put people off the video is the crop factor. So if you want to find out more about that, do go check out Josh's video. It's very good, and he basically covers all the points out there for you filmmakers. Now, when it comes to actually using the camera, I've really enjoyed it, especially the lenses that they're giving you. When you go with it, you're looking at a 24-105, you can get that as a kit lens with the camera. They've also got a 35mm 1.8, which is quite nice as well. They have the 50mm f1.2, which does actually have control of the autofocus, so you can go from full autofocus, where you can go to 8 centimeters up to infinity, so you can have the full range if you wish, or you can control it so it stops it trying to focus breathe when you're trying to find your focus point. Autofocus is on the side as well. You do have stabilization in this, but from what we've tested, when it comes to the video as well, it does use electronic stabilization, so basically the sensor shrinks the pixels and then bounces the control over that using a accelerometer. On the back here you have this control, which is a multifunctional dial, or should I say just a button. So you can push these buttons across here and across that way, and you can control things like ISO, aperture, shutter speed, or you can go through different types of shooting, so single shoot, or you can go into your high speed shoots. You can do the 8 frames a second, and that's all available to you through the control at the back here. Now, it is a bit of a different design to what we've seen with Canon. With the lenses, they're using a new RF mount so they can get a wider diameter. So they're doing what Nikon's doing and having wider aperture lenses available to the users in the future. When you're looking on the side, you've got a remote control, so you can do your long exposures with a remote. You've got your built-in mic and headphone jack, so it's right up video street. You then got USB, so you can link it directly into the computer, and you got a mini HDMI as well, so you can link that up to a TV if you wish. Now, when it comes to control and grip, very comfortable, much bigger than the Sony's, and I'd probably say it's a bit more comfortable than the Nikon Z7s. I feel it's just a bit thicker, it's a bit easier to hold, and not quite as chunky. I found that the Z7 was a very chunky grip, which is a lot better for people with big hands, but with small-ish hands, you know, the Canon does a nice feel to it. So with the Viewfinder, you're looking at a 1/2-inch OLED EVF. There's about a 4 megapixel pixel count, coverage 100%, and when it comes to magnification, it's a 0.76. So not as big as the Nikon, but you're still looking at quite a wide field of view. From the eye point, it's about 23mm from the eyepiece lens center. So when it comes to controlling it, if you're short-sighted or long-sighted, it does give you a nice control. You do have a diopter on the side in order to do that. Now this sensor here, I did find it was a bit hit and miss sometimes. For some reason I went up to look through the viewfinder, it wouldn't change over, and then other times I would go right up close to it and it would change over no problem. So I don't know if that was just because of there being a bit of dust on the sensor, but there was sometimes it just wouldn't do it. So you got to make sure that you wipe it before you look up, which can be a bit of a nuisance to some people, but not everyone. So when it comes to the screen, it does flip out, so you can use it for vlogging if you wish. But on the main thing, you can use it to focus, and it's very easy to use. Also, when you're focusing on your subject and it's moving around, you can use Canon's dual pixel autofocus to actually track them as you're taking pictures of them, which I found really good to use, really easy to keep your subject in focus without needing to keep refocusing every time they move. When it comes to the picture quality, you can obviously shoot in RAW, but you can do that with the large as well, so that's pretty obvious. When it comes to actually changing between the modes, so say you want to go from aperture priority to manual, you can actually go into the screen here by hitting the mode button and then dialing it across over to manual and then pressing mode again, and then that gives you the control. And the dial on the outside of the mode you can then use to control your aperture, and then you can use this one to control your shutter. But you can change that around to how you want to shoot. So you may be used to having the aperture on this dial and the shutter on this one. So it's all available for you to use. When it comes to ISO, it was a bit of a tricky one. You either have to set a custom button, or you got to go onto the screen and actually touch it and then dial it into what you want to use, and you can put it into auto. So I did find that a bit of a faff. I'd rather just have an ISO button to use and then control it that way, but you know, you kind of everything. And with the size of the camera itself, they've opted for a large screen, and they made sure that where your thumb sits, it's not covering any buttons, so you don't do any accidental pushes. However, in saying that, depending on your thumb size, if you have this section here disabled, you won't have a problem, but if you have it set up to use for ISO, when I was playing with it before on our first hands-on with the Canon EOS R, I did find my thumb pressing the button and setting off the ISO to dial itself up to 25,600, which was really frustrating when I kept it to 1600 and then a light little touch and then it shot it right up to 25,600. So that was very frustrating, but I did have it disabled now, so now that I'm shooting, I don't use it as much. I don't see many users out there actually using this feature. Whether or not Canon will keep with it in the next iteration of its products is another question, but in our overall opinion, we didn't really use it much. We can see some benefit to it, but it's not a revolutionary feature to have on a camera. One nice thing that Nikon have also done, are Canon doing, they are keeping with their regular battery, so they haven't opted to go with a new model. So if you are a Canon user, you won't be looking to get a whole new set of batteries for a new Canon camera. They do take the old ones, and for some of the new batteries you can charge it directly, although it does take quite a while. Now when it comes to lenses, Canon haven't put out a roadmap yet, so we only know about a few of their lenses. They're all very high quality lenses that do come at a high quality price. I mean, this 50mm f1.2 is a bit bigger than its EF counterpart, and you're also looking at about another £900 on top of the price. So it is a very expensive lens to use and also to own. When it comes to picture quality, you know, if you're spending a lot of money on a lens, you expect it to be good, and with the 50mm we do get that. What you can get as well is Canon are offering adapters, but they're offering 3 different kinds of adapters. So you can get the normal RF to EF lens adapter, so you can use your old Canon glass and put it right on there. If you're a filmmaker, they've also added one with a dial, so that you can actually control say the aperture like an old school camera at the back here. So if you're used to doing a lot of filmmaking with a lot of cine lenses, you have the aperture at the back, and now you have that available to you. Only caveat with that, I believe, is the fact that the adapter itself does click. So that may be an issue, and as far as we can see, there's no way to declick it, but we'll do a bit more research and we'll get back onto that one. And lastly, you've got an adapter that enables you to actually put in a ND filter, a variable one, and also circular polarizer. So rather than having multiple different Canon lenses and screwing on different size adapters, you can just put it right into the adapter, right at the base here. So it's a very smart idea. especially again for filmmakers, but also for photographers as well. If you're changing lenses and say you want to go from using an old 7200, you want to switch it up to 2470 to get a different aspect, you haven't got to think about a different size adapter to put on your ND filter. You can just slot it in the back and carry on shooting. So if anything, it actually makes life a bit easier as a photographer, and it's one of those things that you kind of wish you had before, but we're glad that Canon have thought about it with their mirrorless system. They will be coming out soon with the adapters, so stay tuned when you do see those coming out, because those will be very useful, and you could see a lot of filmmakers as well as photographers using them. But as a photographer, I could definitely see myself getting my hands on it. Putting it in there is going to save me money when it comes to buying other ND filters and circular polarizers of all different sizes. You can just go one set and they'll all go into the adapter and you're all good to go. Yep, so this is the screen here. So if you're in night and you want to brighten up, you can just hold down the light button. It'll be like this temporarily, then it will change back, but we'll just change it back now. So to actually change from manual to aperture priority, you just press the mode button, dial across over, so you've got different options there, and then we'll just select aperture priority, and there we go. So currently I'm at f1.2, but we're going to change that over to, let's go with an f6.3. Let's go f8 and see how it performs. I got my ISO on auto, I got my exposure compensation just dipped down a little bit, so we'll see how it performs and we'll have a bit of a play with the files. So let's go have a little shoot. Yeah, just as we're about to shoot, the sun decides to go away, but we'll see what we can do. One thing we did also notice as well is the viewfinder isn't very bright, and when you're looking through it in this kind of sunlight, you've really got to try and make out what you're looking at. So they could have done with making it a bit brighter. I just find it a bit dark, but I mean, you can clearly see the image, but it would just help to, you know, brighten up the image so that you can actually see what you're taking a picture of, rather than struggling to make it out. Autofocus, very quick, very easy. There's nothing really much to the autofocus. I think we've gotten to that point now where cameras pretty much get it every time, and we're just kind of nitpicking when they're a bit slower or a bit faster. But overall with the 50mm, very fast, even though you do have a moving part here. So if I go into manual, the front does move in the 50mm, which may be a bit of a risk for some people, but obviously you'll just get a UV filter put over the front there to offer a bit more protection. And one of the nice ones to get out at the moment, STC have got a sapphire glass filter that you can get, and that goes right on the front. So for extra protection, do check those out. What's also nice as well is that even when you're shooting just in photo, you still get peaking. And with that, you can then control the focus ring, and then you can see it highlight in red or a different color of your choice, and this makes life really easy. What they've also got as well, which you can't really see, but what they've done is they've set it up almost like a old school system. I think if you can focus just there, so you can actually control, and when these little arrows line up, it lets you know that you've got that section in focus, and if you go out, they'll go white, and it's just telling you to close the gap. So you can get bang on the money every time, depending where you want to focus. And you can change where you want to focus. You don't have to be in one point. You can say, oh, I want to focus on this tree here. So you can just tap on the tree, and then I've already got it on focus. But if you unfocus it, it's like, oh no, it's out of focus. Line it up, and there you go. Now you're in focus. So easy. So if you're a manual shooter, this is a really nice feature. You won't get that with your DSLR Canon, but you can get it with the Mirrorless EOS R. A nice shot there. Very easy. Shutter button itself, very easy to use. There's not much holding you back from pressing it, so it is a bit sensitive, but you can give it a nice little push and you get the picture pretty much instantly. So we're away from those mirrorless cameras taking their time when you wanted to take a picture, rather than push button and then it goes. It's pretty much straight away, which is really, really nice. And that helps a lot when you're working in an environment where the subject is moving very fast, or you need to get that split moment. So say during the wedding, you want to get the kiss, you want to be on the money there and then. You don't want to have it having to push it just before and then go too early or go too late, and you lose your opportunity and you lose the picture. One other nice feature that we like about the Canon is the fact that if you want to change lens like this, there's a little curtain that covers up the sensor. So if you're outdoors, you haven't got to worry about all that dust just flying onto your sensor. There's a little, I mean, it's not going to protect it completely in the rain or anything like that, but for things like dust and, you know, in the weather we're in today, it's nice to have something just to cover up the sensor, and it just makes life a bit easier. So it saves you having to constantly clean that sensor, because that's one of the annoying things about a mirrorless is, yes, it's smaller, yes, it's lighter, yes, it can be faster in some cases, but when you change lenses, you get dust on that sensor in next to no time. You've got to constantly clean it. Having just a simple cover over the sensor can make a massive difference too when it comes to changing lenses. And also if you want to risk changing lenses, that's another thing. If you're gonna open up your camera and expose it to the air, you're gonna get dust in there. And especially with a mirrorless camera, you're going to get dust on that sensor, and that can be very, very annoying. It can actually prevent some photographers from switching over. But just having that curtain there, as a Canon user, just switching from one lens to the other, you're not going to have a second guess of it, you're just going to do it. But when it comes to who would use this camera, I would probably see this as more for someone coming from a slightly lower end DSLR, looking to invest into the mirrorless system that Canon have put in place. So if you're coming from a old 6D or an old 5D2, going over to mirrorless is a good and viable option. However, this isn't considered a first camera as a professional, according to Canon. They see this more as a secondary camera. So if you have a 1DX, if you have a 5D4, this will be your second camera, because it does have the electronic shutter, so basically it won't make a sound when you take a picture, which is great for more intimate settings, so weddings. But they're not seeing this as something that would replace a professional camera, and it's clear to see why. You've got a single card slot, which won't appeal. Also, it's a bit smaller. They're still looking to come up with a battery grip as well. It's still got a lot of issues, such as not a wide selection of lenses, which is what Canon is working on, but at the moment there isn't much out. But hopefully that'll change in time, and we'll see that transition over to the RF system, but that will take a good 3 to 5 years. So overall, I think Canon have done really well with the EOS R. There's a few areas where they can improve on, so maybe adding a second card slot. We're happy to see they stuck with SD. You know, with Nikon moving over to the XQD and only that card, that could actually have a detrimental effect on how many people will actually upgrade to the XQD card. And we are aware that they do have the XQD card available in the D500, the D850 and the D5. But with that, you get the option to have an SD card slot there as well. So with Canon sticking with the SD card, we're happy they're going to do it. When you're looking at video, you know, you can always get an external recorder and record to that instead, which is why the HDMI is there. But overall, we're very happy with it. We look forward to seeing some more lenses coming out. We're happy with the size. We're very happy with the battery being put in place. Autofocus, amazing. We don't really see much use and having 5,000 autofocus points. We think that's just a number that they've opted for, and they thought this would be the best thing, especially for tracking. We can see it being used there, but if you're individually selecting little areas, the last thing you want to do is go through 5,000 different points to get to your chosen location within the viewfinder. So with that being said, obviously you can change the number of autofocus points down to kind of group it instead of having all 5,000 available to you. But from that, yeah, we're very happy with what they've done, very happy with the performance of the camera. We see it as a great option. If you're out there and you shoot video, you're going to love this camera or you're going to hate this camera. If you're a photographer, I see this being a great wedding camera. I see it being a great portrait camera. If you're into sports, it's a little bit too slow when it comes to frames per second. If you're kind of in and out of sports, you know, it won't do too bad a job. But this is primarily for people who are going out shooting at their own pace and at their own leisure. So with the battery life, when we tested it, Canon were saying that you'll get about 370 shots. If you go into power saving mode, looking more about 440. In our testing, it kind of varied. It kind of depended on the temperature. So with some of the cooler days, we were getting more towards 350, the 370 that they were saying. But in a bit of a warmer climate, we did find that we could push about 450 without going into power saving. But that does depend on your settings. If you're in manual, Depends how much of the camera is actually putting in the work if you're taking full control over it. If you're doing video, it's a different story. That does depend what frame rate you're at. It does depend what resolution you're shooting. But overall, we've been very impressed with it. It is one of those cameras you will need a few spares if you're going out and shooting for the day, but other than that, we think you'll be very happy with it. So that's our review of the Canon EOS R. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, my name's Luke, this is PhotoBite, and we'll see you next time.